Aren't they pretty?
Goo darlings. All right, so today's walk and talk is about things to avoid when you are booking a short-term like vacation rental here in France. At least what I choose to avoid, what to look out for, and my favorite sites. So let's get going. So I use a variety of different types of sites, and I'm going to list them all right here. I'll put them also down in the description below on the YouTube video. It sort of depends upon where I'm going. Some sites will have better choices than others. There's no real rhyme or reason to it. It just depends upon what type of property I'm searching for, where I'm going, and what personal requirements I have, which is often dog friendly. Cancellation fees can be a pretty big deal. I found that booking.com has some of the most lenient cancellation fees, but be sure to look at the fine print for whatever property you're considering, especially if you like to change plans last minute or you're a little bit concerned about your travel commitments. Just like Uber can be a popular taxi service in some markets, and I used to use them all the time, I don't recommend Uber, nor do I recommend Airbnb in the Paris market. Unfortunately, Airbnb in Paris has a horrible reputation about hosts canceling last minute. And the costs of renting a flat in Paris is so expensive right now that you may not even be able to afford shopping for something last minute if it's even available. So I would not suggest using Airbnb in Paris. However, I do use Airbnb occasionally, especially in rural locations. However, I do prefer supporting local as best that I can. And one of those is like Gîtes de France, the B&Bs that are privately owned. Another great way to support local is by using sites like booking.com to do your research, but then going direct. Go directly to the website of the property and book direct. You know, those third-party sites like booking.com, they take so much money as a third-party fee that along with just the taxes of operating a business here in France, supporting local even goes so far as how you book a property. So that's something else to consider. Next, what I want you to do is jump all the way down, not only to see the cancellation policy, but also the fine print. It is not unusual for places here in France to still, unfortunately, charge you for sheets, for towels, for each person, as well as random fees, exiting fees, cleaning fees. Of course, there's pet fees, that should be expected, but even extra deposits. And they can be quite significant. So you want to be aware of that. I always steer clear of places that have all of those extra fees. Also check all the fine print for what the rules are for staying in the property. Sometimes if there's a lot of just like fine print, things that you have to do, early checkouts, they want you to take out the trash and wash the dog, you know, all that kind of stuff. I kind of steer clear of those properties that have a lot of rules to them. You know, you're on vacation, you want things to be easy. I never stay in a place that clearly is still being lived in by the owner and they're just kind of renting out part-time. You also want to look through the reviews very carefully. Some of these sites I've noticed will kind of populate reviews with a mix of like good and bad, and some of them are really old. Check the reviews for like the latest, what people are saying. Be confident about where you're staying and where your money is going. This is not cheap anymore to travel. Room by room, I'll tell you what I look for in some of these properties. I generally rent whole flats or houses because of the way that I travel for work here. I don't generally stay in hotels anymore, except for, as you guys know, I love Relais Chateau. But that can also blow out a budget if you're staying anywhere for any length of time. So usually Relais Chateau is sort of a treat that I will tack on at the beginning or an end of a trip, but I mostly stay in homes. In the kitchen, what I'm looking for is just a proper cooktop, a decent sized fridge, and I'm also just making sure that there's good coffee supplies. Like, I don't need a fancy coffee maker, but I need a coffee maker. And sometimes you'll have a washing machine in the kitchen area, but there may not be a dryer. So if you're staying any place for a while and you're kind of dependent upon cleaning clothes while you're traveling, it's a consideration, because certainly if you're waiting for things to air dry, if it's humid, your clothes aren't going to dry in a decent amount of time, do consider making sure that they have a dryer. I do not travel during the summer months because it's too hot in France, and I prefer to stay close to home and near these beautiful beaches out here in Brittany. However, do consider that you're looking for AC. It is a rarity. You're going to have a hard time finding it, but if you're sensitive at all to heat, you'll want to take the extra effort to plan for having a place that has aircon or booking a hotel that offers that. Also know that sometimes they will put governors on those, so they will only go down to a certain temperature and not past that. So it's something to know, because if you like an icy cold room at night, especially during the summer months, it may not happen. In the living room, there isn't much I'm looking for other than maybe during the winter months. I want a chimney because it's super romantic and fun. But what I'm looking at in the pictures is for the couch and living room furniture. You know what? At the end of the day, after going out, being gone all day, or just on a rainy day here in France and I'm on vacation or relaxing, I want to stretch out. I want to be kind of relaxed on the couch. Maybe I want to watch a movie at the end of the day. And sometimes these living rooms have like very small spaces, right? Like an IKEA style tiny couch and a couple of chairs. That's not comfortable for you and your family or your travelers in your group to kind of congregate and relax in. So that's something to consider. Additionally, another thing to look for is not just if it has Wi-Fi or internet, but the quality of it. When I travel, because I often travel for work, I have to reconfirm that they have fiber internet at their place. If they don't, I might reconsider, because I need that internet speed for my purposes, but potentially somebody in your group does as well, whether they're working, they like to play online games, whatever that is. Always check the internet if that's important to you. In the bathroom, what I'm looking for is the shower setup. Now, if I see that the only thing available is a bathtub without a shower curtain around it, I'll probably skip over that property. That's still a very traditional thing here in France, becoming less and less of an option in the hospitality industry. But it is typical for some of these bathtubs to be your only option, and it just has like a handheld shower. So I just don't like that. I like to be able just to take a normal shower with like a normal shower head. I'm sorry, this girl likes to just have a regular shower. I find these just so weird, because like I feel like I'm getting water everywhere and it's hard to like stay warm while you're getting cleaned up. I don't know, it's a princess in me. I just don't like it. So yeah, this princess likes a bath. You know, the decor doesn't have to be perfect, but I do like a more traditional shower situation. If there's an extra bathtub for them, you know, to soak in at the end of the night, that's fantastic. That's great. But I still don't like the ones where it's just a bathtub, no shower curtain. It's just completely open and you've got only a handheld kind of shower system. It just doesn't work for me. In the bedroom, what I'm looking for is, I mean, I'll be honest with you, I'm at the point now where if I don't get a good night's sleep, I'm struggling, you know? So I am looking at the bed, you know, what kind of quality of bedding? Can you imagine yourself tucking yourself into that bed at night? The comforter looks fluffy and then there's like lots of pillows and, you know, everything looks like, you're just ready to climb in. Or is it kind of just flat looking? The pillows look flat, everything looks flat and just sort of hard. Again, that's when that fine print really comes into play, because some of the more traditional French style vacation rentals, they may give you the bedding and just put it on the bed. They're not, you have to make the bed when you get there. A lot of those places are still the ones that also charge individually for sheets and towels. At the end of a long travel day, are you willing to make up your bed after doing everything else? You might. I feel like that's a service that should be included. So just consider that. Hey girls, you enjoying the walk? Yes, it's a nice walk. It's starting to get a little warm out, huh? So let's talk about some tips and things that I try to avoid specifically in Paris and what I've made mistakes on in the past. This was early on in my French adventures, and I was just starting to stay over here in France for extended periods. And of course, I was too nervous and didn't have the confidence to leave the city yet. But I was like super romanticizing the places that I was going to stay. And so I wanted something that looked French, felt French, with the tomates in the floors, maybe a little just kind of rustic. And I found this beautiful flat. It was at the base of Montmartre, Place de Clichy, for those of you who know. I didn't realize what I was getting myself into. And on top of it, okay, I fell for, in part, not just the interior, but that it had these French doors that opened out onto a private garden with a Mirabelle tree. So romantic, right? But in order to have that, of course, then you're on rez-de-chaussée. That is your bottom floor. Oh my goodness. Not only was that a huge security issue, but I couldn't open out the doors, the windows to anything on the street side, right? So here I am, the weather's starting to turn, starting to get warm, and I couldn't open up my windows in the bedroom because not only was it street facing, security issue, but I didn't check Google Maps, and there was a pub that stayed open until like 3 o'clock in the morning, right across from my bedroom. So if you are new to booking things in France, just know, and you're like, say from the States, just know that rez-de-chaussée or ground floor is what we would consider first floor, right? And then it kind of goes up from there. So in France, first floor is technically our second floor. So if a property, like you're up on these, in the maid's chambers, up on the 6th floor, you're actually going up 7 flights of stairs. And trust me, they're not to code like in the States. You're hauling up groceries or going up and down multiple times every day, right? And a lot of these places, they may not have elevators. So think about that. Use Google Maps. Check out the neighborhood, see what's in that immediate address vicinity, and look to see if there's pubs that stay open late. If your flat is facing the street, it's something to consider. Again, you know, you want to get some good sleep and some rest after a long flight, and you want to be wide awake and ready for croissants and coffee and to go see all the things first thing in the morning, right? Of course, you're in France. In reverse, you know, if you're choosing something that's out in the countryside, how rural is it? Do consider that. I've stayed in some pretty rural places. I didn't really feel very comfortable coming, eating out at night because I didn't want to drive back down that windy road or down that long driveway in the middle of the night, right? Or maybe it's just, you know, uncomfortably far from groceries or gas stations. Those are all certainly things to consider. There was a house that I rented for a month for a work project in Normandy, and I loved that house. I loved it so much. It was so beautiful, but it was down this crazy steep driveway, and my Land Rover was fine, but then she gave out on me and I had to have her fixed. And so I rented a little Fiat. She could barely get it down there. And then we had like this weird ice storm. And so then I had to park it at the top of the driveway because it couldn't get out. So, you know, there's just those sorts of things too. Just be observant of what you're seeing in those photos, or maybe the lack thereof. If you have any questions about that sort of thing, ask for additional photos before confirming your reservation. Perhaps another thing to kind of keep an eye out for is consistency or inconsistency in photos as you're looking through them on the rental sites. So for example, if you start seeing a lot of like bug netting over beds, and then you find this other place that doesn't have that, one, are you okay with that? Because that speaks to me as being a place that has a lot of bug issues. And then on top of it, not seeing that on a vacation rental that I'm interested in. Okay, what's going on here? Like, do they actually have screens on the windows, which is not usual here in France? Did that person put screens up, or they just left that out? Am I going to be eaten alive all night long? When my son and we went on a tour because he was considering different universities, and we went out to Grenoble to check out a school. We were literally eaten alive one night from all the mosquitoes and had no recourse. It was the most humid and horrible evening. We just quit the very next day. We're like, this part of the trip is over. We're not okay with this. And he absolutely hates mosquitoes. So that in of itself, he was like, even if this is just around this house, he's like, I'm not putting up with this. Like, I get you, kid. No problems. Let's get out of here. And finally, this tip is for my darling introverts, my fellow introverts. One thing that I look for, especially if I'm staying at a bed and breakfast or in a chambre d'hôte where it's like a bit more intimate, perhaps the owners are living on property, I look through the reviews to see if there's a lot of comments about the owners like constantly checking in or being like in your spaces and being hyper friendly. It's so sweet. I love that. I think that's wonderful as a service. But for me, I like privacy. I like to be left alone. And I don't want somebody like constantly like knocking on my door and checking to see if I'm okay and just like being in my space all the time. No, that's not for me. So also do know that if you're traveling with a dog and you are staying at a place like that and they also have pets, just consider that. I've had a few places that I've stayed at where the owner's dog honestly doesn't really like other dogs being around it and gets kind of territorial and aggressive. And so you're constantly babysitting that situation. That isn't so relaxing. So that's another little thing to consider if you're traveling with pets and staying in a place like a gîte, chambre d'hôte, bed and breakfast sort of style. Hopefully you found some of these tips and ideas helpful for planning your next stay in France. Now, if you have additional things to share, ideas, experiences, suggestions on this topic, feel free to add those in the comment. I hope you have a wonderful day. Girls and I are gonna go get some crepes now, so bisous.
Weird feeling, you know, it's like what's going on?
Coucou darlings, how are you today? So I have some special news. Do you see? There's a third one. This is the newest member of our family. This is Ollie. He is a 2.5-year-old French bulldog that my son brought over from the States, and I want to share his story with you right now. Ollie is a 2.5-year-old French bulldog, and his journey to us has been quite the adventure. In early March, truly overnight, Ollie was diagnosed with stage 3 IVDD, intervertebral disc disease. He went from a normal playing, running, happy boy to being completely paralyzed overnight. His previous owner, a friend of the family, had work commitments and was all too difficult for his upkeep, vet bills, and the time needed for his recovery from stage 3 of 5. He was all the way up to stage 3 of 5. The vets were considering euthanizing him, but I just couldn't bear the thought. So I begged everyone to reconsider and offered to adopt him myself. My son took on the huge responsibility of Ollie's daily care and recovery. Ollie arrived May 19th with my son, and he's already bringing so much joy into all of our lives. He's so fun. Such a different personality than Pearl and Rose. He's so curious. I love when he tilts his head and just really watches you, especially when you're in the kitchen. He likes treats. So here are some tips and steps based on our experience that can help anyone considering a move internationally, particularly from the US to France. The first is finding the right vet. Finding a vet who specializes in USDA forms and processes is really important. It's crucial to have a vet experienced in international pet travel. Plan everything based on when you're getting the documents, not just when you want to leave. Coordinate with your vet by having a preemptive list to ensure all details are covered. Compile all the necessary documents into a master dossier. This includes vet records, vaccinations, charts, x-rays, and more. This is very helpful when meeting with your new vet in France. The rabies shots requires a minimum of 3 weeks of quarantine and must be done within 1 year before entering France. So again, you need to have a new rabies shot at least 3 weeks before you leave. And within 1 month of departure, you must get a certified USDA vet health exam. This info is then sent to the USDA, which overnights the certificate within 10 days of departure. The overall cost before flights for this was about $1,000 because Ollie didn't have a proper chip before he left. So we had to do that too. Thank you for your continued love and encouragement and friendship and your support. And stay tuned because I'll be sharing more of Ollie's adventures in France, the development of his treatment and recovery, as well as all the other fun things that you and I do together in this French life. Thank you. Bonne journée. Have a wonderful weekend, everybody. And I'll see you soon.